Welcome to the Better Data Improvement channel. Whether or not you're looking to develop a machine learning model, apply an analytics model, or just to improve the quality of today's reporting or use of data, many organizations struggle to improve that data sustainably. And actually, they face three choices. These are the choices that we'll explore, whether or not to focus on solving the problem, ignore the problem, or avoiding the problem. And each of those options actually have different methods that are available. As we go through the following video, we'll look at these three options in detail. In order to make a decision about a data repair strategy, the first part is to actually consider whether or not there's a cost benefit. I mean, do we want to actually repair the data? And if we do, as I said, we have three options to consider. We can either solve, ignore, or avoid the data gap. In terms of solving, there are a number of opportunities or methods that can be leveraged. You can try to capture the missing data. This will require some subject matter expertise. You can cross-reference or substitute the missing or inaccurate data for another source. You can enrich, standardize, or rework that data, or you can re-engineer the data capture or maintenance such that there is no data gap in the first place. If you want to ignore, you have the opportunity to basically remove the missing or invalid data and continue to process or provide analytics on top of the existing data that is correct and valid. However, you can also remove the extreme values if there are outliers, or segment out rather than just remove, but segment out and label that invalid data so you can come to it at a later stage. In terms of avoiding, there are other things that can be done. You can guess the missing data, you can classify out the problem or default or derive that missing data. You can manipulate it to reduce the impact of the board data. This could be done by maybe weighting out the impact of or the severity of the values that are associated with that data that is inaccurate. Or you could implement a best record waterfall logic so that if you have multiple versions of the truth, 4 versions of an account, you could choose the best record to use for aggregation reporting purposes. So in terms of solve, ignore, and avoid, there are a number of sub-methods that can be chosen. In order to choose which of those repair strategies is the most appropriate, you'll have to have a look at the type of data gap. Is it to do with mastering, i.e. the initial capture of the data? Is it to do with the format or the type of the data, or all the dates in text, or all the numeric values somehow presented as text? It could be something to do with the way in which the data is transformed or joined in the processing layer post-mastering, or it could be that there's a problem with the reference data set. So, for example, an occupation code or an industry or a country could be missing from the prescribed values at the point of capture. I guess the next thing that we need to do is to make sure that we log the opportunity cost, because as long as we can learn from that data repair strategy and make sure that we understand the benefit and the cost of it, we can make sure that we can drive further business cases, to improve the data. And I guess having analyzed and done some high level approach work regarding which data repair strategies are most appropriate, the business can either decide to prioritize or risk accept data prevention strategy. So either we're going to repair the data and we're going to make sure that that bad data doesn't repeat itself, or we're gonna just repair that data as a one-off. These are the choices that need to be made in terms of driving better data. Sometimes it's easier to learn about data repair strategies by looking at an example, and one of the examples that we can have a look at is that incomplete data can be resolved by cross-referencing. So let's say, for example, we have a data set that includes client name and account balances and country of domicile. So one of the things that we can do to find out, country of domicile for a specific customer is we could have a look at, external vendor sources like, Bloomberg or OneSource or Factiva or Equifax. There's a lot of different vendors that have information about, specific clients or customers. So we could deal with incomplete data by doing a lookup, fuzzy match lookup against name, the name that an organization has and the name that a vendor has, in order to resolve that incomplete data gap. I mean, the decisions that are needed in this example are just like any other. Is that data an asset? Do we need it? Should we repair that data or prevent it? Or what is the type of the data gap? What's the impact and what's the scope? And as we said previously, that will result in a prioritization call to either risk accept, and do nothing about the data gap, or to actually prioritize the data repair, such that we do have the client names, all of the balances, as well as the country of domicile, such that we can do that aggregation and slice and dicing of that reporting data set. When it comes to deciding whether or not we should repair or prevent the data gap, there's a couple of criteria that can be applied. Number one, we should ascertain whether or not the data in question, the data that has the gap, whether its completeness, timeliness or accuracy is treated as an asset, what the impact of that data gap is, and what type of data gap it is. We should also take into consideration whether or not it's only new data that's being created or mastered, that's faulty, or if it's an existing data set, or if it's a combination. If it's only the new data that is being created as a part of either operating models or IT, then we can look at a prevent only resolution or solution. However, we probably need to repair the data if there's an existing subset of the data that is an asset of high or medium impact, and pertains to any type of data gap, really. The data gap itself just indicates the complexity and the level of difficulty that might be encountered when trying to improve the data. It's possible that for a specific data gap we may do both repair and prevention. We may do repair only, or we may do prevent only, and we may only look at partial data sets, subsets of that data gap that really drive material outcomes, and that's okay too. There are a number of ways in which we can look to prevent the data gap from recurring. We can have a look to improve the operating models and the IT specifically for that domain that produces the data. So improve the standards, improve the capture. We can also have a look to source in better data that can be used to inform the mastering. However, as we move towards more emerging trends, we can look to source data from a master or a better source of truth. We can look to expose master data sources on cloud or other kind of data mesh type distribution platforms. We can make available integrated data sets such that they can be used in conjunction with each other in warehouses or analytics layers, such that we can combine both facts and dimensions that are needed. We can look to make those integrated data sets available for self-service analytics, such that we can generate insights, we can close gaps through machine learning or artificial intelligence, and we can curate data products for self-serve. So whether those data products are integrated data sets, single data sets, or insights. These are some of the ways in which we can prevent data gaps. The last one, I guess, is also to look at the existing data lineage flows within an organization. How do we produce reports and metrics today, and do we need to reduce reliance on antiquated and existing architectures that are not necessarily relying on mastered data sets or cloud available data sets, or the data mesh, or these curated data products? How do we move away from the current state and towards that target state? That's the question that we need to really drive as we look to prevent data gaps. And there we have it, an unpacking of some of the considerations and data repair strategies. But of course, we touch on how we drive data prevention as well. I hope you've enjoyed this content. Please stay tuned to the Better Data Improvement channel and subscribe and like my page for further content.